All right. Well, Bob, I've been filling time before you got on talking about the town hall and the final report, that kind of thing. So you can get back to you can get to the committee now.
Since I didn't even know we were having it, I won't be much use. And it's not Rachel's fault. She sent me information. I just, I after the hearing yesterday, I had to drive back to the mountains. So, um, yesterday was a long day.
I warned everybody that we were hoping you would give us war stories, and that was the extent of our agenda for today.
Well, it was an interesting argument, not entirely unpredictable in that the legislative defendants essentially put all of their chips on Harper three and that this was a political gerrymandering, but the challenge and what the most questions were about was the what is fair and how do you apply it,
Yeah.
which in and I try to distinguish the discussion of fairness in the Harper case, which was all about proportionality and the district maps, which is entirely a different circumstance than where it's just an election, a head-to-head election, and whether that's fair and whether government is interfered in it. So I won't say it was one judge said nothing. Judge Foster, who presided, asked a few questions. They hardly ask Strack any questions at all, which is usually an indication that they're buying what he's selling. But
Mm.
uh, I mean, there were some pretty interesting quotes from Phil Strack about, well, uh, fair doesn't have anything to do with redistricting, which, if you're interested in good government, it was
Yeah.
sort of an extreme statement, but
It seems,
They're getting away with those these days.
yeah. But I am give me through this weekend, and I will be back focused on my Carter Center responsibilities, uh, and working on our reports for this event or for the upcoming meeting we have.
it's a
Bob,
bit.
what is the likely next step for the lawsuit? Are they gonna rule whether or not they ask you back for more discussion, or what's the?
No, it's a motion to dismiss, and they'll either grant the motion and will appeal, or they'll deny the motion, which normally the losing party would not appeal, but I have a strong feeling that Strack and Company will, try and get it to the Supreme Court as quickly and as expeditiously as they can. So I think it's, we're a long way away from having the opportunity to actually, prove our case, which I tried to emphasize. Hey, all we're asking for you is give us a chance to put on our evidence. And if we don't convince you, then, we lose, but if we don't get a chance to make the case, then, uh, but I do think there's the headline in WRAL, NC legislators say no right to fair elections. It puts a little bit of pressure on the panel to at least give us a chance on it. But uh,
That was a shocking headline.
well, I mean, that's essentially, I mean, what Phil's position is, and the legislature can do whatever it wants to do, which you know
And
the
I don't think the
legislature.
courts want to be in the position of having that same type of headline about them. Courts say no right to fair elections.
Well, that's right. I mean, and if they grant the motion to dismiss, I mean, that's essentially what they're saying, that you've
Right.
got no way to challenge. Um, I mean, it would be interesting uh, if there was another election issue where you could uh, raise the question, but not in the context of gerrymandering. Um, Yeah, and one of the challenges from the beginning was as an unenumerated right, which of course, we got no case law that we've dealing with unenumerated rights, and 99% of the people have never heard of an unenumerated right. What the hell's that? So including the court. So and it's a little bit of a stretch for them. But as I tried to say, we're not trying to create a new right. We're just trying to get the court to recognize one that's been there since the beginning. But anyway, well, we'll see. I mean, if I had to bet, I'd say they would grant the motion to dismiss. But on the other hand, if they do that, they have to go back listening to dull criminal cases and and boring things. Whereas if they'll give us a chance, we'll give them lots of publicity and
Interesting.
lots of interesting issues to think about. So,
Bob, I'm curious, did you have a chance to do any research on why fair is not in the Constitution? I mean,
yeah, I mean, that's a great question, Bob. I mean, yeah, I mean, and it's interesting. Fair is just rarely even discussed. And I think there's a guy, Charles Plambeck, who is an adjunct tax professor over at UNC, but he's kind of an amateur historian. He was a tax lawyer at Princeton and retired back to Chapel Hill. He's written this really comprehensive law review article on free elections, and I think that was historically was a broadly interpreted concept. I mean, they talk about free elections in the Federalist Papers, but they never say anything about fair elections. And so, if I had to speculate, I'd say that historically, I mean, it seems too obvious that fair elections, if you're going to have elections, they need to be fair. And so it was sort of, but then of course in Harper 3, the majority wrote a really narrow interpretation of the free elections clause. So, which was one reason, I sort of pivoted to the unenumerated rights vehicle. But then it's like, if it's unenumerated, it doesn't have a name. So I had to give it a name. So I called it, fair elections. I mean, we have a great quote from John Adams, both in his primary treatise on government and in his inaugural address, talking about the critical importance of fair elections. But that's about it. So.
Well, I just did a search on the North Carolina State or the state legislature's website, and of the 50 states, they say free and equal or free and open,
Right.
but no constitution uses the word fair.
That's right. And I mean, and as I said, I mean, it's incomprehensible. I mean, you go back to 1868 when the unenumerated clause was put in the Constitution. You have all of these freed slaves who now have a right to vote. You have this expanded list of offices, including judges, that people are voting for, and you put into the Constitution frequent elections is a right, and free elections is a right, and it's incomprehensible that they didn't think they also had a fair election right. I mean, if you don't, what good's a free election if it's not a fair election? And so, I mean, we laid all that out for the court, but it's like, well, how do we apply fair? I mean, there really weren't any arguments we weren't anticipating. It's just, it's hard to articulate a justiciably manageable standard of fairness. But I think, so I tried to use sports analogies and stuff like that, that if Carolina plays Duke in basketball and the legislature says Carolina starts with a 10-point lead. Most people, it ain't real hard to say, well, that's not fair. Duke might still win, but the ground rules have been torqued to give one side an advantage. So I don't know. It was interesting.
Well, thanks for the update. That does sound interesting.
Yeah. So anything else, Mr. Chairman, I mean, like I said, I got nothing to add other than I will get back to working on those drafts to get around to folks this coming week.
Yeah, I did mention that you were doing all the work on that, Bob, at least between the two of us, and that you were working with Nemery and one other person is you mentioned, I think.
Yeah, Patrick Brady's helped some in Dimney, but what I got to figure is how to put it in Rachel's format that she sent, or the what do you call it?
Is it the PowerPoint template?
Yeah, it's whatever the template we're supposed to put our reports in.
So we have both the draft template for like the actual report and the PowerPoint template. If you need help with that, I'm sure Dimney could help put it together.
Yeah.
If she can't, then I can certainly help with that.
Okay. All right. Well, like I said, we're headed back to Raleigh Saturday.
Okay.
So
I'll be glad to work with you on that, Bob. I don't mean to lateral it to you. It's just it's helpful
well,
to have.
no, I mean, I've we've got stuff drafted or rough for the most part. It's just sort of figuring out how to get it into the format and then let you and Jill and the other folks on the committee make sure it reflects sort of where we are on it. But I still think the General Assembly gets to choose the winner. It will be the more interesting of the things that we're doing.
And it's just it's a draft. So if
Yeah.
this is missing, like I said, the public opinion is going to be informed during our town halls. We're going to get evaluations and feedback from that as well. So there'll be things that will be added. And, we'll probably have to hire an editor in the end to like make all the formatting the same, et cetera. Cause that's, with 11 different committee reports, it's going to be a lot.
Yeah.
But that'll happen in December and January. So we have time to.
I hope we
time to do it.
survive till then.
That's right. We might be focusing on other things.
Yeah. How quickly can I move to Ireland?
Oh, by the way, not to add anything negative, but one of the reasons the troubles started in Ireland is that the Protestants in Northern Ireland gerrymandered their districts to keep the Catholics out of power.
Surely not.
It's scary looking at parallels.
Dark times in which we live.
Yep.
Well, that's all I got in I need at my age is Justice Edmonds, who's a slight bit younger than me. It's I need a little rest and recuperation, which I have not had much of lately. So
Jennifer and I and Jill, we were all laughing, and Rachel, about you and Phil Strack arguing against each other. That must have been sort of an odd sensation.
well, it was, and the most fun part. I tried to use a couple of your opinions, Justice Edmonds, but they were more on the racial gerrymandering issues and not on what we were talking about. But I pulled out the Stevenson complaint in Phil and Tom Farr and Jim Devers brief to the Supreme Court. And I mean, hell, I could have written it for this case. I mean, all of the allegations they were making 23 years ago about the Democrat plans, were exactly applicable to the issues, not a different constitutional claim, but but, you know, complaining about the use of data and no competitive districts and everything. It was, you know, there's a friend of mine who was a very engaged Republican lawyer up here in the mountains. His favorite quote was, "Once again, politics has risen to new heights of hypocrisy." And so, you know, it was like, you know, well, you know, yeah, we believed that 23 years ago. We don't believe it now. So,
Rules
so,
for thee and not for me.
yeah, me is in power now, so I like, I like that. All right,
Yeah.
I've not had breakfast, so I'm hungry. And as much as I enjoy talking with you people, I need a break.
Fair.
Yeah,
And
I
thanks for
think we're
joining
I
us,
think we're
Bill.
good for, yep. And everybody's got the idea of what July 15th gonna be like, and we will be working on the town hall tours after that. Bob, no
Ah,
rush, no
yes.
hurry.
Yeah. So, and more T-shirts coming to a vendor near you.
Jennifer,
We're working on them.
I have a list in New Hanover County of like 100 to 150 like media and reporters and whatnot. So if
Great.
and when you ever do want to send something out about this, just let me
Great.
know. I can send you our list too. Or
That's
I can push it out to them, whatever you want.
Is that just Brunswick County or is it the whole region?
I mean, it's mainly New Hanover County. There's definitely some Brunswick people in there. There's definitely some Pender people in there, but it's primarily New Hanover County.
Hanover. Okay. Yeah, no, that sounds great. We definitely can use that. And
Mike Sasso from Bloomberg is doing a national story on our elections here. He called me yesterday. So he did one a couple of months ago, but he's doing a follow-up and comparing North Carolina and Georgia. And I'm interested. I'm glad we're getting coverage.
can you tell what angle he was calling about?
Basically, the first story was about the growth in North Carolina and the difference between like how Brunswick essentially is a ton of Republicans moving from the north and they are
Yeah.
getting redder. Whereas we in New Hanover are probably getting more purple, if not slightly bluer, because I will say most of the Yankees moving here are my folks from New York and New Jersey and Democrats. But what we're doing to counteract this growth, what we're doing differently than 2022 and 2020, how important North Carolina has become as a swing state. I just like that we're getting national attention. I hope they all the parties invest here. I mean, again, I don't have to preach to this group, but everybody deserves the right to vote. I mean, I'm an immigration attorney and half my clients are still asylees losing their lives for pro-democracy movements in Burma and other places. And it's sad, I think, that how we take it for granted here. I would help anybody register to vote, any Republican, anybody. I wish everybody voted.
Make sure you talk about the public education that we're doing in the town halls.
I am, don't worry, I am. Because I think it's a huge part. I really do think public education is the number one thing.
Well, and we found that in 2022, all the folks moving from New Jersey and Massachusetts and New York who needed to understand our system. So absolutely. That's a big, big reason. I mean, we're gonna keep growing. Look, we're a great place to live. We have good climate and a lot of variety and mountains and sea. So we're not gonna stop growing anytime soon.
No, and I think we do have a good election system, or I love the Board of Elections in both Brunswick and New Hanover. They are as bipartisan. I trust them implicitly. Like they are a good group of people. There's no way to commit fraud here. There really isn't.
Yeah, without getting caught.
But
you
All right,
see
gang.
you all.
Yep. All
All
right.
I'm gonna sign off. All right, we'll be talking. Okay.
Thanks
Right.
so much, everybody.
All right, gang.
Bye,
Have a
guys.
good
Have a
weekend.
great
Catawba.
weekend.
All right,
Yep.
thanks.